so today we're actually going to talk about how to become a real estate investor and give you some tips on our first run in investing in real estate. So,
So let us start from the top. In the beginning, when we decided to go into this business together in real estate investing, we decided to go to take a class, a real estate investment class. So one thing that I for sure would say is, if you see the commercials on TV or hear them on the radio and they're like, hey, come on out, and they have some celebrity as the face and brand of these companies, just know going into there, the expectation, you might feel like you're going to go in and you're going to learn all of this information and you're going to come out and you're going to know everything you need to know about real estate investing. Don't go in there with those expectations.
yeah. Because for me, I've been in the real estate business for 11 years as a real estate agent, broker, did a little bit of investing as well. And so when I saw those big names of the people that are on TV, that definitely pulled you in to say, okay, let me see how they did it. I want to learn what they know, what they actually didn't show up for the class. There was somebody else there. But the initial class is kind of like a seminar, kind of like the hype to get you going and to get your money.
It is.
It is. It's probably like a 3-day seminar, And I will say that maybe for someone that has no knowledge in real estate, doesn't know anything about real estate investing, maybe that first class was worth it. That first weekend was worth it, I would say.
A big piece of these real estate classes, like definitely not knocking the classes, there's definitely a lot of valuable information that they give you. The basic knowledge around the financing piece, things to think about, how to consider whether you should work on that project or walk away from the project. Different areas of investing that you can do, whether you want to fix and flip, whether you want to fix and hold and do rental, depending on what your situation is. But one thing that I will say, these classes are built to upsell to get you to take the next level of training. And then the next level of training do provide you with additional training and more information, but a lot of the people that's there, they're there to upsell. So you gain some information, but again, don't set your expectations too high to think, I'm going to come out of here and I'm going to know everything that I need to know about flipping a house, because that's not going to be the case.
No, and the way that you learn anything in real estate, and that's even as a real estate agent, it is through working with people. It is a hands-on experience. You're going to walk through it and learn at the same time. So if you're geared to take that, extended course that costs a whole lot of money, I would say just try it on your own first. And if you feel like you need a little bit of additional help, then maybe, but I honestly would not do it. Honestly, the reason I say that is because it is a hefty cost and it puts you in debt before you even get started. And so let's talk about money, because debt and money, it's important starting out.
So one huge piece of the debt portion that Erica is speaking about is you have to have some type of means. So you can find a house, you can figure out, okay, this is going to be my niche market. I'm going to target people who are foreclosing, and I'm going to try to get them to sell to me. I'm going to negotiate, and maybe you're great at all that. That's perfectly fine. But when it comes down to closing, you're going to need that money. So where is this money going to come from? Are you going to have it from like a hard money lender? Do you already have the money to buy houses, and what price range you're going to stay in? Are you going to have an angel investor who's going to give you this money and charge you a fee on top of it? So I would say you for sure need to have that figured out sooner versus later, before you even really start looking, because the process of negotiation and moving forward with the house can happen really fast. So you want to make sure that the financial piece, at least for closing on that house, you have it figured out. And a lot of times in these real estate classes, they'll give you ideas of what you can do, and they'll give you all these resources and these institutes and banks and all this information to contact. But the reality of it is, that becomes the hardest piece when you're trying to do investments, is where is the money going to come from? I have the knowledge, I have the drive, I'm hungry to do this, but where's the money going to come from? So just make sure you figure that out. there are a bunch of hard money lenders. Of course, everything comes with fees. So
Fees.
everything comes with fees from
Fees,
beginning to
fees,
end.
fees.
Yeah, so we're talking about fees and the money piece. Just make sure you have an idea, something locked down, concrete of how you're going to pay for the house at closing, and then also you want to have the money to do the actual renovations if you're going to flip and fix. So,
Yeah. Because I think they set a lot of unrealistic expectations, to be honest. Unrealistic expectations, which was to draw you in. Oh, we're going to give you money. Oh, we have this money here. The money is there. Don't worry about that piece. No. That is the biggest piece to worry about. Where's the money going to come from? How am I going to fund this deal? Who do I have to call? All of these things that we went through after coming out of this class, and then guess what? A lot of it didn't pan out, and we had to figure it out on our own. So I had to go back to some familiar resources, you know, and the way that they set up those unrealistic expectations just made everything seem crazy. But then I went back to some formal resources that were more reliable than some of the stuff that they sold you on in the classes. So I would just say be mindful of that, because the money piece is a huge part. You can't buy a house with no money. And if you have to find the money, you have to find the money right away. So let's just talk about one of the initial things that we did, where we came out of the class and, you know, we got some of those signs. They would sell you on the signs everywhere. And
one of the things we did was the yard signs, or the signs that you see hanging up on like the corners of intersections when you're driving. And this was a big way to market yourself and to get potential people that have hardships, might be losing their house, looking to sell their house for different reasons. They'll see these signs, you'll say, we buy houses fast, cash, you know, to draw you in, and people call those numbers. So that was a big thing for us for a couple of months. So we drove around and we put up signs everywhere. And then the next day you go drive around and those signs are gone.
Right.
Like
they don't tell you that part. So you spend all of these hundreds of dollars and then put up your signs, and then you go back like, all of my signs gone and nobody called me. So that's another.
And again, not knocking it, because it's a great marketing tool, but you have almost foot to the pavement. You have to be very strategic about other ways to find these type of situations that people may be in, and to find potential motivated sellers outside of just the signs, because that's just one way of marketing. There's a million other ways to do it as well. So we did spend a lot of time that first month putting up signs, ordering signs, putting up signs, mailing postcards.
Oh yeah, so we drove by houses. So I'm in real estate, so whenever I was out, I would drive by and look for vacant properties, and I'm writing down all of these addresses, and
I'm texting her addresses.
We texting addresses back and forth, and so, I guess you could say it was kind of fun, right? Funny. But anyway, so you write down these things, send out the postcards, and hope that somebody calls you. They may have gotten from the signs and the call, maybe a few, but not enough. It wasn't anything to close the deal.
One suggestion that they had from the class, which was a good suggestion, and it still is, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people use this and get a lot of traffic from that. These ways of advertising, it just didn't necessarily work out in our favor. Like this first home that we're actually flipping right now, it was not from the postcards or the signs on the corners or the intersection. So it was a different route, but I see the value in it, but you just have to do it. It's like every 100 things that you're mailing out, you might get 5 calls back. So the ratio of what you're doing there, it has to be in abundance, and then you're putting the money up front, spending it on those materials. So great idea. I just feel like you gotta
set realistic expectations, and you have to have realistic expectations. But you also have to set goals to, put your goals out there. And again, that's all a part of the real estate business, honestly. The sign thing, the mailer thing, the postcard things, those are things that even us as real estate agents, we utilize on a regular basis. So those things actually do work. Now let's talk about,
hold on, before we move on. One thing that I will say that was important to understand with that piece is, when you were driving around and when we would send addresses to each other and say, oh, this house looks vacant, or oh, this house, like we need to knock on the door because maybe something is going on because it looks like they need to sell it, whatever for whatever reason. It made you understand really how many houses are out there that could be potential houses that you want to buy. So in the process of us doing this whole postcard thing and finding addresses, it was a lot that we learned about looking at a property, knowing if it's vacant, and also as you're working on the house that you eventually will buy and try to flip or whatever you're going to do with it, making sure that house that you have doesn't look the same way for potential buyers that you're going to be selling to. So
for sure. So they call that driving for dollars. Okay, so you're driving around driving for dollars. And I mean, I would still say I would probably have an address book full of addresses that we may want to follow up on in the future. So that could be something good still.
It was a cool thing that happened. One of the postcards we mailed out, we saw a vacant house, we mailed out a postcard. The person who called us back, he didn't want to sell that particular house, but he had other houses he wanted to sell.
Yeah.
So I will say again, if this is going to be your strategy and this is going to be the avenue you're going to go, it may work. You just have to put probably more time and effort in it than we did.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's talk about actually working on the project. So when you found the house, you negotiated, you got to closing, you've got the money part figured out. You got to have the money part figured out. So you have the money part figured out, you've got to closing, and now, boom, you have this house. Where do you start? What do you do? Let's talk about contractors. And then let's talk about actually materials and design and stuff like that. But let's start with contractors.
Yes, contractors.
Oh, Lord.
So for me, again, I do have some past experience, so I kind of have some expectations for contractors, but April, on the other hand, she's very much into the management portion, and usually when she tells people to do something, they get it done, but in this field, it's a little bit different because you're working with a whole lot of different personalities. Of course, and when you say you're hiring a contractor, they are supposed to be under your supervision and you are supposed to tell them what to do, but it don't always work out that way. So you want to talk a little bit about contractors?
So huge lesson for me. I work in HR, so I'm all in a 9-to-5 job that's very structured. So the way that I operate is just very structured. So I figure that's just my personality in general. So if I book you to come do something, I'm expecting for it to be done right, done at the price you say you want it done at, and then for it to be a very professional interaction. And I will say, for the most part, the contractors that we dealt with, we got most of that. But the biggest problem that I found with contractors is that you're working with people who work for themselves, so you're working around their time, which is fine. But the bigger piece is you're not always going to find people that are that have integrity like you do. Unfortunately, we went through some situations with contractors where people came, they did work, the work wasn't sufficient. So
plumbers.
Yeah.
Plumbers are the biggest issue.
I feel like the biggest issue we had was plumbing. We had to get our plumbing redone. At this point,
three times.
This is
the third.
And it was
not the full job, but some parts of it.
So just knowing, like, you can hire even people that have licenses. Just because they have a license don't mean that they're going to come in and do what's right. The thing is, once they have their money and they're on to their next project, and you call them back saying, "Hey, X, Y, and Z is wrong with this project," they don't care. They
don't care. So the first, and we're just talking about this first experience with the first plumber. He was licensed and everything. He came in and he did the work. But that work was not completed in a way that was sufficient. And
later on in the project,
we didn't know, but when other people come in to work on top of it, they're like, this isn't right. And so again, we had to go and pay a second plumber to come in and redo some of those things. So you run into issues like that, and I will say there will never be a project that you won't have an issue on. So don't go in with, oh my God, this is going to be the picture perfect scene. No, it can really drive you crazy. It can really stress you out. But I will say, just stick in there. Yell and scream and do all of those things, but still know that at the end of the day, things do work themselves out. So we had the issue with the plumber initially. We had to have the plumbing, not all the way done again, but some parts of it done again. So that was a hefty expense, and again, it takes you out of your budget. So just,
Pause for 1 second, because we didn't talk about budgets, and that was one thing I know we talked about finance earlier, but before we actually closed on this house, before we said, okay, this is gonna be a go, we did do an inspection. We had an inspection done, so we could holistically know what was wrong with the house. We sat down, we went through a spreadsheet for every area of the house and put in what we thought would be the cost for repairs, so that we knew what type of budget we were on, and if we could afford, would it be profitable for us to flip this house based on what we're buying the house at, what the renovations would be, and then what would be left over. So that was a big thing. But with the contractor piece and going over budget, some stuff you are probably going to go over budget for, but you want to try to stay within the bracket. The plumbing thing for us definitely took us over budget, but we were able to balance it out in other areas. So the thing, like Erica said, with contractors is and my lesson is you're going to get what you pay for as well.
Not all the time.
Depending on the situation. You know, if you have relationships with certain people, electricians, plumbers, certain people, you would think, okay, if they have a license, I'm going to get what I pay for. But what I'm saying is get what you pay for in regards to most people who charge more and do the job right are willing to come back out, and especially if you have another job for them. That was a key too. Like if you have another job for them or referral basis where, hey, I'm referring you to family and friends for stuff for their own homes, that was another way to will in contractors that we could rely on.
Yeah, and I think we were talking about budget. Budget for us, if you're a novice in this and you don't really know how much, it's going to cost to do plumbing, how much it's going to cost to do electrical, how much it's going to cost to do the cosmetic fixes, I would honestly say, still, you got to utilize contractors so that you can get a couple bids to kind of get an idea of a roundabout of price. And then there are some online groups that will definitely share how much it is you're supposed to pay. I see it posted in the investment groups on Facebook all the time. What's the expectation? So I would say do your research there. I do have a little bit of a background, so I was able to kind of like do those numbers. And I think the numbers that I did were pretty close to the things that happen here. But again, we did go over budget. And you have to have somebody that is all about the money.
I'm all about the money.
Okay, so sometimes I can be all about the pretty, but you definitely have to have somebody that is all about the money and cares about you guys staying in line with that budget so that you don't fail at the project before it even starts.
Here was a cool thing too when you talk about staying in the budget. So you're overpaying for some contractor stuff, maybe fixing some errors that happened earlier on in the project. But it was a cool thing when you start shopping for materials and stuff. Don't be afraid to shop around. You have your local Home Depot and Lowe's and maybe Menards or whatever other stores you have in your area, but catch sales. We call a lot of, fortunately, we've been doing this around the holiday season, so we call some Christmas sales, especially when you're talking about for like light fixtures and paint and certain things. So don't be afraid to shop around, sign up for these Pro Club discounts and programs, because they will email you and say, hey, we've got paint on sale or we've got certain things on sale. So we were able to take advantage of that. I want to say we've got some paint on sale. We call Lowe's with some coupons.
Oh yeah, I'm on the coupons. I shop for my coupons. So people moving out of their house and they get that little "you moved," it's a 10% coupon inside of there, and I wait until I get a whole bunch of stuff to buy.
No, we bought
$2,000 and you get $200 off. Like, that's a deal. So shop around for those coupons. Don't be all about, oh, I can just go. No, because again, be mindful of your budget, and if you could save any money anywhere, I would definitely recommend that you do that. And don't buy the cheap stuff just because it's cheap. You still have to buy a house, buy materials that will bring the house to life, and so that when people walk in, they say, wow, we don't buy cheap paint. I mean, you definitely have to pay the money for the paint, because the quality of paint has to last them for years. You don't want to skimp in that area, and it is the thing that will draw the people in. But before we get to cosmetics, maybe we want to talk about a couple other things in regards to the setup. So we talked about budgeting for the house.
Talked about the budget. which is a huge thing. And you always just want to come back to that. You know, every couple of weeks you want to come and look at your financials, put it all on paper, check to see what you've spent, really tally it up to keep you on track, because at some point you are going to get closer to the top part of the budget, and if you still have a bunch of stuff to buy, you just want to be mindful. So
project management.
Oh, project management.
Let's talk about project management. So that's all inclusive of budget, that's all inclusive of contractors. It is the flow of how the project is supposed to go. So if you're a novice in this, you definitely want to make sure that if you did do a home inspection, you have a contractor walk through with you and tell you the things that you need to do. In a lot of these older homes in the city of Detroit, you will need to do some plumbing repairs. You will need to do some plumbing upgrades, okay? You really can't skip around that, mainly because when a buyer walks in a house and they figure out it's old plumbing and something that may cause a problem in the future, they're not going to want to go through all of that. So I would definitely say structure the project in such a way that your plumbing is done, your electrical is done. If you need any electrical upgrades or updates, you definitely want to do that before, while they can do the tearing out of the wall, because you don't want to have to go through that once you have put in new drywall and all of that stuff. So make sure you're on top of your plumbing initially, your electrical initially. Depending on the weather, you need to do the roof right away, because you can't do a roof in the wintertime.
Outdoor stuff, period.
Outdoor stuff, period. One of the things that we probably didn't do with this project is some of the landscaping. We kind of didn't think the cold, and we were actually out there in the cold.
Shoveling
And shucking and picking and cleaning. And it was probably about 30 degrees outside. So you want to do that when it's warmer, just so that you don't have to, go through that. And you will have to get your hands dirty. So I talked about us being out there. For some people, you will have to get your hands dirty. If it's within your budget, you won't have to get your hands dirty. But for us, where we had to pay a little bit more for other areas, we said, okay, let's go in and do some of these things initially.
Smaller things.
Yeah, just smaller things. I think initially when we came in, we probably touched some walls, pulled down some drywall, did a little bit of cleaning, not a lot. You still should pay people to do that.
Wallpaper.
Yeah, wallpaper. Things that people want to charge you a couple $100s for. If you could come in with your partner and just kind of wipe down and pull it down and that be it. And sometimes you have to get in here and get your hands dirty. Sometimes. Demo day. I'm trying.
It's coming out.
There we go.
It's coming out.
It's starting. See y'all later.
One
Don't
thing,
go a lot yourself.
yeah, one thing that Erica mentioned is like project management piece. I would say lesson learned for us moving forward. If you come in and you say, okay, this is the budget, this is what we want to spend in our time frame of getting this house flipped. We wanted to do this in 3 months. That was our goal. So in order to make that happen, you want to make sure you're on some type of time schedule. So it's important to let, she mentioned walking through with the contractors and making sure stuff is done in an order that makes sense. So if your contractor is tearing out walls and then you have a plumber coming or electrician coming, you want to schedule this stuff in an order that makes sense. So that way, each person that has work to do in your house can come at a time that works for them and nobody is being held up by the next person.
Right.
So just lesson for us is just being more diligent about, okay, what are we trying to have done within the first few weeks, first few months, and really try to stay on schedule. We did pretty good with that. I feel like towards the end we got a little bit off because we ordered some stuff, it was a delay in delivery, and so our contractor worked with us and worked around those things.
Yeah, but it kind of maybe slowed down the project too at the same time. But overall, I do feel like, we did good with the time.
Join us for part 2 of this video, as we have so many more things to talk about that you will enjoy. Join us.
Appreciate you. Gonna show you a little tidbit, some little outtakes of the house, and anything else you want to say?
Yes, this is not going to be the last time that you see us, so keep your eye out for Level Up Properties, because we'll be coming to a neighborhood near you. And if you have a home or know someone who has a home that they want to sell, We're your girls.
We're your girls. And just one more thing, for other people that are interested in real estate investing, if you want to reach out to us, we'll be more than happy to speak with you, consult with you on some things. And so just reach out to us. We'll leave some contact information at the end of this video. So again, look forward to looking for Level Up Properties.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching.